Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
Hey, everyone in, let's go. Huddle up on 3. 1, 2, 3, huddle up.
No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. This is your game now, gentlemen.
Russian 3, dropping 8. Uyangalele steps up, loads and throws. It's caught. It's pitched backwards, up in the air. It's on the ground, still in Clemson's hands. And now it is down. It is over. And the Irish have knocked off number 1 Clemson.
Fans on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Eller for the draw. And as the puck drops, the words that DC fans have been waiting to hear since 1974, the Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions.
And now, welcome everyone to the Huddle Up Podcast.
We're not going to be fucking sunk this year. We're the Stanley Cup champions. Yeah!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle Up Podcast. We are back after our week off, as is going to be kind of the new customary piece of business as we work through the football off season. But we still have plenty of football topics to discuss tonight, as well as some NBA, some NHL, and Dave is back with us this week, and so we may have a few golf lines for the Players Championship coming up this weekend. Obviously, one of the most popular tournaments of the golf season, so we will certainly be watching that and paying attention to it. So since he is the man back this week, Dave, how we doing?
We're doing well. Happy to be back with you fine folks here, and ready to talk some sports for a little bit, but all is good. A little bit crazy, but all is good.
Yeah, it certainly is. Sean, how we doing? A little bit delayed start. We'll call it a rain delay or what have you, but we are here. I see you have the shirt on. Obviously, you can get your Huddle Up merchandise over at whatamaneuver.net. That's of course the main logo. We did drop the Property of line this week as well, so head over to whatamaneuver.net, find our store, buy some merchandise, and pretty comfortable. It looks good.
Yeah, very soft shirt. Very, very excited to have it and be rocking it. And I don't know, hopefully once Nick settles into a size he'll have for a while, maybe once we get into the 3T-esque variety, we're right at the tail end of the 2s. Maybe we'll rally up one for him and of course Chase on the way. A little confused, Dave, talking about these fine guys or good-looking guys. I didn't realize we had anyone else in the studio, but I'm hoping to meet them, whoever they are.
Yeah, whoever those guys are, welcome in.
Whoever that good-looking bunch is. Maybe he's talking about Jake.
I wasn't looking at the I don't have the video up, so I was clearly surfing Twitter at that point in time. So,
gotcha. Got some followers.
I'll say right now tonight, Dave is the best looking one of the three of us because his camera isn't on.
Yeah, that helped. Well, yeah, that's the only thing helping him, I think, at this point.
No doubt. Well, it's good. It's good to have the crew back here on a Tuesday night. Like I posted the other day, we are transitioning to kind of a every other week thing, unless something really big pops up that we want to jump on and talk about. Make sure you're subscribed.
That's what she
said. Make sure you are subscribed to.
That's what she said.
To our podcast feed, because
black is swimming.
If the mood strikes, I made you kind of a quick couple minute podcast drop. It won't be a video drop, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything throughout the year. If you're following along with us in a live video, we welcome you in, and make sure you give that video a like and a share. We'd appreciate that. Get as many people in here and interacting with us as possible. So the big news, obviously, guys, this week, breaking yesterday, that the Dallas Cowboys have come to a new deal with quarterback Dak Prescott. 4 years, $160 million, 126 guaranteed. Could be worth up to 164 and up to 6 years, depending on some years that can be exercised at the end. $66 million of that is in a highest ever signing bonus. This year, he will earn $75 million, which is a record for a 1 year part of the deal. Obviously, a lot of that is loaded into that signing bonus, because his hit against the cap is only around 23 million. I saw last night the contract's going to average around 42 million a year. He would have been owed about 37.5 million if he was franchise tagged, which is where the Cowboys were likely to be headed if they didn't get this deal done. So they actually saved $15.5 million against the cap this year by getting this huge deal done. So the reports were, prior to last season, that he wanted somewhere between 35-40 million a year. They didn't come to the terms. So they franchise tagged him. We know about the injury. There's reports about a week ago that he wanted Patrick Mahomes money, and he almost got it here. So, I guess the first question is, how surprised are you that, and Dave, will start with you first. How surprised are you that the gamble made by Dak Prescott paid off for him with getting the new deal?
So I'm not surprised, because he's a Cowboy and Jerry does some ridiculous things. But I'm surprised that Jerry did this after the ankle injury, for the sheer fact that we don't know how good the ankle is going to be moving forward. Again, you would hope that the Cowboys did some testing of some sort to make sure that he's, capable of walking, let alone running and cutting and all that type of stuff. But the other piece is, it's Dallas, so nothing really surprises you. But, it's interesting that he's the second highest paid quarterback in football, I believe, for the average of his 4 years. And yet, in my opinion, he's a mid-tier quarterback, that there's probably 10 or more guys I'd rather have quarterbacking my team if I had pick in an optimal world. So I don't mind locking him up if I'm Dallas for the amount of time. I just think they overpaid.
Sean, how about you? Are you surprised that the gamble for Dak paid off?
I'm incredibly surprised on Dak's front. A little less. I'm kind of with Dave, less surprised on the front of the organization. I don't think that you're going to make that kind of commitment if you haven't been in constant or semi-constant contact with the medical staff and the doctors. Yeah, I don't know. It's not like there's been a run of QB signings. The surprising part is usually when you see a contract like this, it's because someone else set the standard. And I mean, if you're setting the standard at Patrick Mahomes, I think the resume is too different to count that as a standard. I mean, you had a couple guys restructure and things like that. Obviously, Tom Brady's looking at an extension. I hear word down here is he's very close to extending beyond this year. And we'll see what those figures are. I'd imagine they're not going to be in that sort of realm. I feel like Tom's past that as far as needing to cash the paycheck. It's going to be a good amount of money. I don't think it's going to be one of those challenge the top in the league scenarios with his age. But At least in Kansas City, they waited until there was a Super Bowl to the credit.
Right.
At least a handful of playoff wins. And last I checked, he had 2 legs at the time. So I'm not real sure I agree with it. Obviously it may have been a little bit of panic in that, there was a little bit of play in the Russell Wilson sweepstakes, and there was a little bit of play and maybe we can go out and land a different guy and take some of the leverage away from Dak. And obviously those windows either required too much to open or just weren't opening. And I think you saw this feels a little bit like panic, a little bit like we better lock this guy down because, and I did see that there was the piece in there that he cannot be franchise tagged from what I understand. At the end of this contract, either sign me again or let me go.
Yeah, it can't be tagged. There's obviously a no trade clause that, I mean, if for some reason this deal isn't working out, and it's very front loaded because, this year he's going to get $75 million. Next year he's due around 46. So after that, you've probably already paid about 2/3 of the contract.
I saw Jake's quote there. The TB12 never asked for that money, knows how to build a team. The thing with Tom Brady that's even more impressive is he didn't get that money. That money was kind of post his original contract, but he got a big payday. He had his one in New England, his first big payday, locked it in. And then when it came time to make a run at another Super Bowl or 5, then in order to make pieces work, he's a guy that's always restructured. And he's not the only guy that does that, but he was immediately like, let's restructure. Let's, change where money's got. Like he was always willing to, maybe take a little less, make a little more in a bonus, that kind of thing. So, and he made his money outside.
Well, and it also helps that he's not even the breadwinner in his family.
I was going to say he made his money outside the NFL, like in a marriage.
Like marrying Gisele Bundchen.
Imagine being the best quarterback of all time and marrying into money.
Right. Like that's even the craziest.
Just marry into half the money that Brazil has.
But for me, I look at this contract. I'm as a Cowboys fan, I'm happy. They got Dak under contract, especially with.
As an Eagles fan, I'm also happy that you have Dak under contract.
As a Cowboys fan, I'm happy that his cap hit is not as much against Dallas as Carson Wentz is to the Eagles this year. So it's
true.
We're all sorts of happy on both sides. But like, and as Dave and I were talking a little bit before we came on air, is the Cowboys know what they have in Dak Prescott, and the kind of the problem is, I mean, that your offensive line kind of needs some help. Obviously, defensively needs some help, but you have CD Lamb, you have Michael Gallup, you have Amari Cooper, you have Blake Jarwin, you have Ezekiel Elliott, you have the backup running back Pollard. So you have all these weapons on the offensive side of the ball that basically went this past year wasted. Once Dak went down, Andy Dalton gets sick with COVID, and you're starting Ben Narduzzi and Cooper Rush and Joe Smith, the beer vendor from Section 100. So you went a whole year kind of wasting some unreal talent. What you have in Dak Prescott, and is the contract value high? It absolutely. Also, it's market driven. 2 years ago, this deal was $10-15 million less. If you wait another year and spend $37.7 million on the franchise tag, the contract, instead of being $42 million a year, might be $46 million a year, $47 million a year. And Dak, by getting hurt, almost proved his value to the team because he was on a record pace through the first couple of games. And obviously, you're out there gunslinging because your defense can't stop anything or couldn't, especially at the early part of the year. So, yes, the contract's high, and I can understand why some Cowboys fans are frustrated. But, ultimately, I think this is the right move because you can talk about how many different quarterbacks in the league that you would like to see quarterbacking the Cowboys. However, how many of those guys are realistic options? Are you going to be able to make a deal to bring in Watson? Would you be able to bring in Russell Wilson on a deal. And I don't think the Cowboys have the capital on that team to make a deal to bring either of those guys in. And Rodgers isn't on the move. Brady's not on the move. Mahomes obviously not on the move. So when you start to go through the list of guys that you want as your quarterback, I think you very quickly run out of guys that you're capable of bringing in. So, for me, I do look at this and then you do bring into question, can he rebound from this? And yeah, I don't think you make the deal if you don't have some sort of a sign that he's going to be. I don't know if you ever get back to 100% after snapping your ankle in the nature that he did, but the injury 10 years ago probably would have been near career ending. Now he's back. So, I do think that the Cowboys were able to get him under contract when they had to. You didn't want him to go and cost 37 against the cap this year. Jake here says they don't have the best O-line in the league anymore. Is that a problem money-wise? And the problem with the offensive line, this is another thing Dave and I were talking about, is when healthy, that starting five is one of the better offensive lines in the league. It's not the best anymore, but you don't have any depth. So the task on the Cowboys now, between where we're sitting here at the beginning of March and when the NFL season begins, is finding ways to bring in guys to add depth to your offensive line, because you're not
going to need to, because a lot of those guys, aging more, and the trouble with offensive linemen when you start to have injuries with your legs is they tend to reoccur, whether it's season enders or even just a game here or there. The trouble with even a game here or there is you're playing patchwork, you're moving guys around, right, and you run into a situation that may have caused, similar to what may have cost the Chiefs back-to-back Super Bowl bid this year.
Right.
It definitely was evident especially when you're playing against teams with a good pass rush, which, in the division that they play in with, even Philadelphia, that's one thing that wasn't a problem for them. Washington had one of the better ones in the NFL, especially in the second half of the year. And the Giants, maybe they used to have one.
I think they have a decent pass rush.
They have guys that line up at the line.
Right.
So at the very least, there's someone that you have to block and is capable of moving.
You play Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, everybody in the division plays Tampa this year, so that's it's just kind of one of those scenarios where you don't want to be doing that. So if you're gonna, the one thing with locking Dak up and not having to play the quarterback carousel game anymore is you kind of know where you're at. If you can restructure some deals here or there, maybe use the draft. I know there's a lot of holes on the defensive side of the ball they can go after. But if there's a solid offensive lineman that you have high on your board there, where the Cowboys pick, there's a chance you could end up with something there or something in free agency. So I definitely think that's your next shopping point if you're Dallas.
Yeah, and you also this year play the Arizona Cardinals. That's one of their at-large games. Which we will talk about the Arizona Cardinals and their upgraded pass rush. So you definitely need to do things to address the offensive line in Dallas. That's no question. I think the other part too is there's guys on the Cowboys defense that can and probably should either need to be restructured, and they need to find a way to move them. And there's certain guys that have way too big of contracts, but ultimately, do I wish the Cowboys would have gotten this deal done last year and it would have been a little bit cheaper? Absolutely. But I think, Dak feels like the right guy, and they will, they will now have to work with what they have and try to build something around him to, to make sure that they have the team that's ready to go and not going to cost them again next year. So continuing in the NFL, the quarterback carousel is continuing to turn, and really when we're talking about the biggest names on this, we're looking at Deshaun Watson, we're looking at Russell Wilson. I think a couple weeks ago, the first reports that there's potentially some unhappiness in Seattle with Russell Wilson and the possibility that he's pretty much done. And the more that comes out on this, I've heard interviews with kind of insiders with on Dan Patrick and things like that, that the feeling from a lot of people close to the NFL, regardless of what Seattle's saying, is that this situation with Russell Wilson in Seattle is pretty broken, and they would be actually very surprised if Russell Wilson is the quarterback in Seattle to start this upcoming season. Sean, we'll sit at because I know we've discussed the Deshaun Watson situation, but man, do you see Seattle resolving this? And if not, where do you think he will end up?
I think where we're at, I mean, we're far from the end of obviously, free agency just kind of getting rolling. But I mean, it seems pretty broken, but at the same time, there's a contract in place. And if Seattle doesn't have a contingency plan, they're not going to move him. I don't think they're in a position, because he's not in a position to play poorly. Do you run the risk of him sitting out? Maybe. I think players with how much they make off the field, like, it's a situation we haven't really seen come to fruition yet, but players, especially a guy like Russell Wilson, has a ton of money that he makes outside of the playing field and outside of his team. So he's kind of one of those guys that could set a new standard. And if it's truly broken, if Seattle says, well, you're still with us, and he says, well, then I'm not going to play until you find somewhere to send me. I'm not saying I know that it's there, but it sounds like it's getting to a point where it could be, and he would be an interesting candidate to do that with the success he's had outside of playing quarterback. But I still, it's hard to see him playing anywhere else. If he were to move at this point, I think there's a couple interesting teams. I thought Dallas was obviously on his list. That's clearly out. Right. But a couple teams that were interesting. One is Chicago. I don't know how good Chicago is just by plugging in a Pro Bowl quarterback. Their offensive line isn't terrible, but it's not great either. You have an interesting play with a couple of decent running backs that are very different from each other. So you kind of have some excitement there. And if they could manage to get Allen Robinson under contract and back on the field, the receiving core is not terrible either. No. And obviously the defense is, good enough. They were right there despite the QB woes. So it would be an interesting play there. I could see that as one of my top ones. I also would not rule out the Las Vegas Raiders. Because what's a big play there is John Gruden has complete control of all situations and movements. And I know John Gruden loves him some Russell Wilson. I know when John Gruden likes something and he wants it, he's going to find a way to get it. And if it means overpaying for it, which is probably what a team's going to have to do. And I think Chicago's also willing to overpay. That's the reason they're my two favorites. It's not necessarily the perfect plug-in. It's not necessarily where you would consider a Pro Bowl quarterback wanting to make a move, but they're both situations where you're going to be cherished and loved and given every opportunity to do whatever you want to do. And I know the Raiders are pretty much ready to move on with Derek Carr, as their fans have been for the last couple of seasons. So, well, let's
be honest too with the Raiders. If something doesn't change this year, they're probably going to be looking at moving on from John Gruden as well.
Right. So if he wants to make one last push, right, this might be the time to sell future picks because they might not be yours anyway.
Exactly. And, the Chicago point, they lost out theoretically on the Carson Wentz deal because it was reported that they were going to try to make a play or even did make a play to Philadelphia for Carson Wentz. They lost out on that. And, it's just, if they want to change things around and they're not sold on Trubisky, then they have to make a choice. Dave, I know from talking to you off air, there's another team that Sean didn't bring up that whether it's 100% realistic or not, there's a team that you're kind of hoping that Russell Wilson gets moved to.
Yeah, I think Mr. Wilson's going to the Washington football team. I think he's going to see how good that defense is, and they're going to get some deal in place, whether it's with picks or even long-term picks. And I mean, you have everything on that team, and you look at the Seattle teams, and they were pretty good Super Bowl bound. It was that solid defense, and I don't know that there's I think you've got an opportunity. You slot a quarterback in there, and that Washington team wins 10 to 12 games this coming year, I think, with the talent and what they did last year and everything. And I think pretty much the entire core, and I'm using core in air quotes, of that team that was the key players that were around last year are around again this year. You have Riverboat Ron as the coach. You had a couple injuries. Guys will come back and be okay. But, you slot Russ in there, and that team is really freaking solid. And, I know just from talking to you earlier that that made you shiver and quiver with having that in your NFC East there, slotting Russ in. So that makes me like it even more.
Yeah, if there's a guy I don't want to see against my team twice, it's Russell Wilson, especially on a team that really is good, because when the Cowboys made the deal with Dak, the belief is that, at least on paper, that it moves the Cowboys to the top of the NFC East right now as we sit, because Philly, you're in a situation really where you're where you're rebuilding. The Giants kind of are the Giants, and we don't know what Saquon Barkley is going to be like when he returns this year, and are we still totally sold on Daniel Jones? And
that'd be my prediction.
So it's one of these things where the NFC East really is kind of Washington and Dallas, and right now your quarterback in Washington is Taylor Heineke, and yeah, he was a fun story. The last game of the regular season, the first game of the playoffs, but you got to give the edge to Dallas there. But if they can move and get a quarterback, hell, whether it's Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson's out there, if you can get somebody that's better than what you currently have, that's a team with a great defense, a great pass rush, good young receivers, good young running game, and a tremendous coach. I don't want Russell Wilson in Washington, but there has been some buzz there, and Ron Rivera wants a good quarterback, and a guy that's going to make it work. I mean, a serviceable quarterback, I think you can work with and be successful with what that Washington team is. But definitely,
you just need a quarterback that can manage the game and not lose the game. You don't even need. I mean, you just need a quarterback that's not going to screw up what the defense has going for him. Look at that Broncos team when they beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl with Noodle Arm Manning that just didn't lose the game. That's all you need with that Washington D that's going to be very competitive for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't.
You fired Jake up. Jake's a Broncos fan. We whoa. Things are heating up.
I mean, here's the thing. I love Peyton Manning, but he wasn't the Peyton Manning of Indy when he was in Denver.
No,
he just wasn't. I mean, it's not.
Well, the first run at it, he had his first year in Denver, didn't he shatter records? I thought he was leading the league in touchdowns.
It was the touchdown record, but he wasn't throwing 80-yard bombs. I mean, a lot of those were slant passes, and I mean, they had the talent at receiver.
55, Jake knows.
To make it work. And I love Peyton Manning. I'm not making fun of Peyton Manning, but he wasn't the same guy as he was back then. But you had a defense that made it work.
Anybody else miss Peyton Manning?
I mean,
I just miss his presence around the game. We need him on broadcasts or something.
I mean, we've been watching the Peyton's Places on ESPN Plus.
Fantastic.
That is probably one of the best pieces.
It's perfect
of television I've ever seen. We're still working through season 1. So we have a whole season 2.
Got a lot going on.
But if you haven't checked that out, you absolutely need to
do it.
So obviously we're going to watch Russell Wilson and where he goes, if he goes anywhere. Deshaun Watson reports coming out now that that if he doesn't get moved, and the Texans have kind of implied that they're not going to move him, and it's kind of the implication now that if he doesn't get moved, that he's willing to sit out games. So it looks like we may be in one of those stalemate situations. I think things will heat up maybe a little bit more with that situation around draft time, because Houston doesn't want to end up in a situation where their best player is sitting on the sideline or the press box and not playing. So ultimately, I do think he gets moved.
Deshaun Watson and the 3rd pick for the 1st overall pick.
I mean,
if Jacksonville gets that call, even if Jacksonville would have to give up a pick in a later round, like we'll give you our 3rd pick and Deshaun Watson for your 1st overall pick and like a 3rd or 4th rounder. If you're Jacksonville, are you taking that?
I probably would.
Absolutely.
I mean, here's the thing: you don't
right?
Like we know what Trevor Lawrence looked like in college, but there's no guarantee.
No.
How many first overall quarterbacks?
It'd be hilarious for Deshaun Watson to keep whining about what the situation is in Houston and then wind up on or even worse, he winds up on the Jets.
But do you make that, if you're Jacksonville, do you make that deal because within the division? If you're Houston,
I don't see how you can't. You get Deshaun Watson and then you just get the best available 2 picks later. Deshaun Watson is at least he's not that much older.
Jake says you do it.
Jake says do it. I'm with Jake.
Dave, would you? I mean, well, if you're Jacksonville, you do it. But if you're Houston,
do you make the call?
Do you make that call within your division, or are you calling the Jets at 2? I think you're more likely to call the Jets at 2 first, and then if they don't do it, then
move up 1.
But Dave,
I think it depends on how strained the relationships are in Houston, and I mean, there's only probably a dozen people that truly know how bad they are between them. But if you're going to have Watson sitting all year, and you can move him at the 1 pick, you know what I mean? You got to make the move, even if it's in the division. I mean, it's going to bite you in the ass twice a year, but
and it obviously plays into what they think of Trevor Lawrence as well, because that's presumably who you're going up to get.
Sure.
Just better pick up Troy Polamalu's Head and Shoulders commercials.
Yeah, seriously. But I mean, I think even worse so than the reports of Wilson in Seattle. The reports of Watson in Houston just seem like there's no reconciliation.
Well, I feel like strangely it's very similar tales. Houston's is just far worse. They're both just frustrations with the organization as a whole in what they've managed to build around that player. Saying like, I'm your guy, or you're my QB, and then be like, but you're gonna have to do it by yourself. Like it's not gonna be and Deshaun's is even worse because it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we just sent your best weapon to Carolina for a washed up running back and a ham sandwich. So good luck out there. We're looking for
a good ham sandwich, because
it was a ham sub. It was a 12-inch.
Yeah, because I mean, like we've had ham sandwiches where it's like, piece of ham, squirt of mustard, and dried cheese. That's no good.
I was trying to run because that came up on sports radio here. Like that specific trade, they were making fun of it still, like a year later, and it's like, don't get me wrong. I mean, David Johnson played a full year, looked better than I thought he would. How long is he going to do that for? I don't know. And you're going to probably just bring a running back in to run with him anyway.
Right, and it's not a
running.
Like
DeAndre Hopkins, has there been I was trying to come up with a dumber move. Like was there a move that was made in my lifetime that I remember that was as dumb as that move? And I'm having trouble.
I think I think there was some ink that signed on a $160 million contract that was equally dumb.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I can't. I still can't, especially when it's not a running back.
I mean, in hindsight, the Herschel Walker trade is pretty bad.
Well, sure.
That's an awful. Like you gave a team the pieces to build a dynasty, and in return, you got your washed up running back.
But in the same time, the Dallas Cowboys
still played pretty well for them for a couple of years.
Yeah, the Cowboys, and here's the thing too about that is the Cowboys took the 5 picks or like the 5 players or whatever they got for Herschel Walker, and they turned that into like numerous draft picks and different and nobody saw that coming because
they made like a bunch of moves to like expand that and just rebuild the entire franchise.
And because nobody back then traded draft picks and things like that the way that the Cowboys did. Like for as bad as Jerry Jones is now, what he and Jimmy Johnson did back then with those deals, really kind of changed the NFL in terms of trading.
I guess the better question, because obviously the Cowboys did well with that, and it's a very different maneuver. I guess the only question would be, do you remember a time where a team moved a player of DeAndre Hopkins' caliber for that little? I mean, you're talking about a guy that in, whether it's every circle or not, in plenty of circles, he was circled as the number 1 quarterback or wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't.
There's a few that you could argue are better here in like different circles are going to disagree, but at certain aspects of his game, point of the catch at least, he's the best in the league.
Didn't the Raiders give two picks for Antonio Brown a couple years ago? Again, different caliber.
They might have done that. Although the Raiders come up because when Gruden took over, they did ship Khalil Mack for a bag of nickels.
Oh, that one.
They shipped off Khalil Mack for like nothing. Like 3 draft picks for Khalil Mack.
He hasn't been like overly effective in Chicago, though.
Well, the Chicago defense is I wouldn't want to play him on any given Sunday. It's a defense good enough to make Mitch Trubisky a winning quarterback at least every third start. That's pretty impressive.
Well,
what about the trade up? What about the trade up for Mitch Trubisky? There's a bad trade. I mean, that's
a rough one, but a little different. Yeah, a little different.
That's the thing. I don't know if you have anybody.
I'm with Jake. Khalil proves every game that was a bad trade. Khalil Mack is in people's faces. He covers well. He's everywhere the ball is. Like he's like having Bo Jackson from Tecmo Super Bowl playing linebacker for your team.
And like, here's the thing: is like I just don't know if anybody, at least in recent memory, of DeAndre Hopkins' caliber has been moved by their team. Like
that's because most teams are like, please God, stay with us.
Trade this guy because I think about like when the Raiders traded Amari Cooper to the Cowboys for a 1st-round pick. Like that was a sizable move, but Amari Cooper is not on the level of DeAndre Hopkins. So like it was a big move, but it's not like earth shattering like when you move a guy like DeAndre,
especially after you've moved Khalil Mack.
Right. At that point, it's yard sale 2 p.m. on a Saturday. You're just hoping to not move stuff back into your garage. At that point, you're come and buy it. I don't want to move it anymore.
That's just a situation. But as far as the Deshaun Watson situation, it sounds bad. I think they're definitely looking at all suitors because it'd be different if they had like a middle of the road pick. It'd be a no brainer. Like try to trade up into the top 5 and get your replacement, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. You should end up with an opportunity to replace him even at 3. I mean, only 2 quarterbacks can come off the board ahead of you at most, and they probably will. It's probably going to be Trevor and the kid from BYU is most likely who's going to be gone because I think the Jets are really high on him. That's my prediction anyway, is that's where he ends up. Although I feel like the Jets need to get flashier, Fields is there. Go flashy. Get bold.
Part of me thinks that
bring Fields a flashy QB to the Jets.
I also think that's a mistake. But
you tried safe, pure, all by the book football. You tried that a couple of times in New York, and it hasn't worked out. Of course, they tried flashy. They thought Sanchez was flashy. They were wrong.
Hey, but they got a butt fumble out of that. So
they did get a butt fumble out of it. That's something none of us have.
Last piece of business in the NFL, J.J. Watt signing with the Arizona Cardinals, and I love the way he did it too, because whenever you see these things, who's this? Is it Albert Breer? Is it Schefter? Is it Rap Sheet? Watt posts a picture of himself in a Cardinals shirt, and it just says "Source me." So J.J. Watt, Arizona Cardinals, signs a 2-year deal. It was worth 28 million, 23 guaranteed.
Goes high, but he expected that.
Goes high, but and the report is he wanted to go there because of Kyler Murray and what that team's doing on the on the offensive side of the ball. And of course, you have JJ Watt and Chandler Jones on the same defensive line is not something I want to see very often if I'm an opposing quarterback. I saw a lot of people panning this this signing, and Dave, we'll get your thoughts first on this, and we'll go to Sean, because they're saying that why would he go to a team that has no chance of making a run at the Super Bowl? And I'm not entirely sure that that's accurate. Now, are the Cardinals the best team in the league? Absolutely not. But I think they're to me they're better than a lot of people give them credit for. They were an 8-8 team that could have been better. They lost a lot of close games. And you have a young quarterback, a young offense, a young coach. They're learning all the time. In 2 years, are they going to win a Super Bowl guaranteed? No. However, look at the NFL. I don't think there's a lot of teams that you can say guarantee this team is going to win a Super Bowl. Kansas City is probably a team that you could almost guarantee is a Super Bowl team. Tampa Bay, at least next season, is probably a team that you can look at and say this team's primed to go and make a run back at it. Green Bay maybe in the conversation. I don't know. There's a lot more teams that you're in that. Yeah, they're definitely in the conversation. So I like the Cardinals. I think they're a team on the big upswing. Dave, your thoughts? JJ Watt, 2-year deal to the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's a really good signing for Arizona. Really, really happy to see Arizona get someone big like this. And I really think, echoing a lot of what you said there, I really think it puts them maybe in the front runner for the NFC West now. I mean, we've documented the issues in Seattle. You got to talk about the quarterback in Los Angeles now. And, I mean, it all depends on San Francisco's health on a lot of those things. But the NFC West might be the best division in football. The deepest division, and it also might be the most wide open division, kind of a weird combination that we have in the NFC West. But, the Cardinals were, and I don't remember what the exact record were, but they were like 7-2, 7-3, something to start out. And then Kyler had those knee injuries, and he was pretty much limited in mobility the second third or the last third of the year, maybe it was. But you look at them outside of that, and this Cardinals team is competitive and a lot and pretty under the radar competitive in the market that they're in. I'm not a huge fan of their coach, to be honest, but I think that they have a lot of potential with the players that they have, and it's so early on in Kingsbury's coaching career. But I think that locking up Watt and going on that D line there, I mean, I think that this could give some quarterbacks some fits in that. Not only division, but the whole conference. And the other piece is, I believe they finished third last year, which also gives them an easier schedule, which is something to look at. So I really like this signing for Arizona, and I think that it elevates them. And again, a defensive player is not going to make a difference here or there, but I really think that leadership and things along those lines, it's going to help add to what Arizona's cooking here.
Yeah, I mean they were 8-8. They were one spot out of the playoffs. The only reason that they missed it and the Bears got in was the Bears won the tiebreaker game, the head-to-head against Arizona. So they were right there. They were right on the cusp of getting in. Would they have beaten the Saints? I don't know, probably not. But the Saints didn't look great in that game against the Bears. So you kind of wonder if the Cardinals got in, could they have beaten them? And by all means, I don't think they would have made a run to the Super Bowl, but because then they would have had to play Green Bay. But they're a team that's close, and they were a point differential of plus 41, so they were in close games. You go 500. That's a team that a year from now you add another bit of experience and a monster of a D lineman like Jake says here in the comments. Maybe you win 2 or 3 more of those games you lost. And then you become a 10-win team, an 11-win team. If Russell Wilson's not in Seattle, if Matthew Stafford doesn't work out in Los Angeles, if Garoppolo doesn't get his mojo back and it doesn't work out for San Francisco, all of a sudden Arizona could be the best team in what right now looks to be one of the tougher divisions in football. So I think they're right there. Sean, your thoughts on J.J. Watt signing this 2-year deal?
I mean, the Cardinals, you have a pretty – normally you get that tiebreaker loss, and it's a hard pill to swallow. But when your tiebreaker is you lost head-to-head to the Bears, there's not really much you can say. You're like, well, guys, we lost to the Bears. I don't know what to tell you. Uh-oh. Shouldn't have lost to the Bears. Well, Mitch got us. Nick got us. Whoever, I don't even know who played when they played them.
I think it was Mitch.
I think it was Mitch. Uh-oh. But I think there's some interesting things. I mean, you guys are obviously touching on J.J. Watt bringing a lot to the team. And I don't disagree with that. I think J.J. Watt brings a lot to your defensive line. I just think more of it is in kind of the realm of leadership, I guess, and being kind of that defensive voice. It is a decent situation for him to walk into because Arizona didn't have a bad pass rush to begin with, and they are a team that likes to rotate guys in, and to me that's what Watt was looking for, and I feel like that's the situation that they should have Watt in. I don't think he's a guy you should have on the field every down, and I don't think he's, if a game's out of hand one way or the other, I don't know that I'd have him on the field much at that point, because I think the second half of Jake's monster D lineman comment is for 8 games, kind of hinting at the fact that there's a chance he doesn't make it through a full 16 anyway. But you're right. When you talk about the NFC West, I would agree that they might be the most stacked division. I would argue, though, Dave, that the NFC East is equally as wide open. Just throwing that out there. It's not quite the talent pool that the NFC West is, but anybody's ball game, as far as I'm concerned, in that NFC East. Just throwing that out there.
Whatever.
But yeah, I mean, if you're asking, and if you were asking, would I have thought the Cardinals stood a better chance of beating the Saints than the Bears? I'd have said absolutely. I think the Cardinals at times last year looked brilliant, and at times Kyler Murray looked brilliant. And anytime you can heave the ball downfield to DeAndre Hopkins and have him just snag a win for you, you have a chance to beat anybody. Alleviates pressure on a guy who I'm pretty sure led the league in sacks. Yeah, it was. If he didn't, he was close.
Right.
So you kind of have that monster pass rush. You have a pretty darn good secondary in Arizona. And, like you said, short of Matt Stafford in Los Angeles, who is a major upgrade still, in my opinion, to Jared Goff. And, Lord knows what's going to happen in the state of Washington at this point. So, we could be looking at kind of a strange, it could go from being a Seattle-San Francisco battle to a, L.A.-Arizona battle, which would be very interesting.
Yeah, because, we talked 2 weeks ago.
But I don't think that's because they got J.J. Watt. I think it's because they were already a pretty good team. I would have liked to see him spend some of that money on the offensive side of the line of scrimmage. I felt like, asking Kyler Murray to kind of do all the things that are those 2 quarterbacks we talked about earlier that won out. You don't want Kyler Murray to wind up in that same situation. So that's what I think is their next step. But yeah, not a bad signing. Just felt a little overpriced for me, but I guess that's the market these days on those big name players.
Yeah, I do love how he apparently had ordered shirts for the 5 teams that he had it boiled down to. It was like Buffalo, Arizona. I'm not sure the other 3. But I
would imagine Pittsburgh was on that list.
I would think so, especially
with his brother there and the fact that, again, he wouldn't have had to play every down. And, you're kind of, whether you believe in Ben or not, the Steelers at least give you a chance to get there. It's probably the reason Philly just missed out on that top 5.
Oh, sure. and I mean, he had, not only did he order the 5 shirts, but he had a friend of his actually purchased them and shipped to his friend's house because he was afraid that it was going to get out that he had bought these and where they were going. So he was very extra covert to make sure that the news didn't get out. But of course, signing with Arizona. So like I said, I like the signing. Just saw the Caps won in overtime after being up 4-1 on the Devils, almost blew it. So thank God they got the win there. But I think the Flyers headed to overtime, Sean, as well. So
Yeah, I saw they tied it up. Gostisbehere with the game-tying goal in the third. So awesome. Steal a point from a team you should have just gotten 2 from in regulation.
There you go. So we are going to we're going to pause here. We're going to hear from our sponsor, and we're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to talk a little NBA. We're going to talk a little bit of NHL and some golf as well. So stick with us. Huddle Up Live.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis on all things sports. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, subscribe to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports, and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop. Welcome back, Huddle Up Live, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, at Huddle Up Podcasts. On Facebook, on Instagram, we are at Huddle Up Pod. On Twitter, we are at Huddle Up Podcast. Make sure you've subscribed to the show on all the podcast platforms. And we will be talking a little bit of NBA here. We'll be talking about the NHL, both leagues kind of at their midway point of the season. The NBA just had their All-Star game weekend. The NHL foregoing an All-Star game this year. Maybe the NBA probably should have done that as well. And we will we'll certainly talk about that. But Sean, I think you may have one more thing in the NFL before we.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't know how serious of an NFL piece this is, but obviously as we get closer, I would love it if here on Huddle Up we did our own kind of consensus / versus each other mock drafts. I think that would be a fun off-season scenario to do here before draft time. But someone sent me a mutual friend of ours who goes only by the name Laser. He sent me this hilarious mock draft, and I've been looking at it trying to figure it out. And basically, it's a Twitter mock draft, and it's called the Followers Mock Draft, where I guess essentially their followers / the fans of each team place votes. They're currently up to pick 18. They just picked the second Dolphins pick. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because, James, I think you're going to get a hilarious kick out of this / get a little bit excited / a little bit embarrassed. Because at first it didn't look any different. We had Lawrence Wilson. We had an offensive tackle to the Dolphins, Fields to the Falcons. Then it went back to offensive line. The Eagles, Jamar Chase, not a surprise. You had Devontae Smith going, Trey Lance. We went corner to Denver, Caleb Farley to Denver. Then it comes to the Cowboys picking number 10. And I don't know who's voting. I don't know who's picking. I don't know who's doing what. The pick at number 10, according to this online mock draft, Ian Book, quarterback, Notre Dame, to the Dallas Cowboys at number 10. And I've literally been combing the internet to see, are there any other mock drafts where he's even in the first round? The answer is no. I don't think there are. I've been looking pretty hard. But the fact that, and then it has Kyle Pitts, the tight end, going just after him to the New York Giants. The fact that, and it seems hilarious, but it wouldn't be unsurprising to watch the Dallas Cowboys look at Ian Pitts and some of these other players, or Kyle Pitts and so Surtain, the cornerback, and be like, you know what, Ian Book looked pretty good. Let's go get him.
Yeah,
Holy Jesus.
Now, keep in mind, if they're on pick 18, this Cowboys pick was solidified by fans days before Dak signed.
Right, and that's what I was gonna.
But that lets me know they maybe they're drafting Book to start. That was their plan. Like, we'll just get Ian Book, we'll be fine.
What
if he's
Dallas does. That's what Dallas does. They draft people they already have.
But man, what a jersey to add to your
roster
collection.
spot.
Oh yeah, Dave, you make a good point.
I mean, I'd have to buy the jersey. Like that.
Yeah, it'd be a great addition to the gym.
The last current Cowboy jersey. the only current Cowboy jersey I have is the Zach Martin jersey that I bought when he got drafted from
there. You go.
So I mean, I would have to continue the tradition, but how? Okay, even at that point, because I'm assuming this was voted on before the Dak deal happened,
right?
But in what universe is Ian Book? Even if all 9 teams ahead of
to this draft's credit, no, there's no QBs taken to this point in the next 9 picks after that.
Obviously.
So at this point, no, like it's not like they were like, well, Dallas missed out on this QB. Let's go snatch him up.
Who were the quarterbacks taken before him? A Field.
All of them. Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Fields to the Falcons, Trey Lance to the Panthers, and then Ian Book.
Right. So you're saying
there's only 4 QBs better, apparently, according to these followers.
Is the 5th best quarterback in this draft, which I haven't done a lot of draft research.
But to be fair, they're followers, not leaders.
But if it's true that Ian Book is the 5th best quarterback in this draft, you do not take him with the 10th pick.
No.
Overall. Like Ian Book, I mean, winning numbers wise, winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. I don't want him in Cowboys blue, especially not in the first draft, in the first round.
You've cracked the Jerry Jones draft logic, Sean. Well done.
I guess the fans really threw the book at you.
Jesus.
I didn't bring that up for that joke. It just wrote itself.
Can they draft him? Can they draft him just so we can bring those up every week after football season to Jim?
Oh, it'd be amazing.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
So let's good God, that is awful. But yeah, when we get closer to draft time, we can certainly look at mock drafts, or we can maybe do a kind of a mock draft special or something like that. We'll talk about some of the possibilities as we get closer to that time. NBA season, we're at the All-Star break. The first question that comes to my mind is most other leagues, Major League Baseball didn't do an All-Star game last year, NFL didn't do a Pro Bowl, NHL not doing an All-Star weekend. I think they kind of look at the realities of the world, and we're only a year. It was a year ago tonight was the Capitals' last game before the season shut down. So I mean, we're literally at the 1 year mark now of the sports and the real world changing. The NBA decided to go with an all-star game. They had to put out like extra security around Atlanta to make sure there wasn't parties and gatherings and things like that. And then was it Simmons and Embiid from the Sixers ended up ineligible for the all-star game, possibly going to miss a few games coming out of the break here because of their barber that was with them had tested positive, similar to the situation we saw with Kansas City back at the Super Bowl. So, but really, did the NBA need to do an All-Star weekend? Like, it just in a year like this, and I was listening to my friend Ernest Christian's podcast with Danny Thompson, and they were talking about the fact that you're in a condensed season. Some of these guys have really kind of isolated themselves from their families. You got a week off, and for these guys now, you have to go to Atlanta and do an all meaningless All-Star game. That maybe the NBA should have played on the side of caution and just foregone the All-Star game this year, done some sort of like virtual event, had a little fun with it, and let these guys take a week off and just kind of rest and relax. Because coming out of it, you have a lot of games in a short period of time before the playoffs start. So, Sean, Did the NBA make a mistake? Should there have been an All-Star game?
I mean, I have no problem with an All-Star game from like a wear and tear perspective. It's not like you're running into any kind of strong defensive schemes. You're not having to make any extraordinary cuts. You're kind of just out there having a good time, and it's a game where you're rotating through the bench because you got a lot of guys that you want to get into the game. And I mean, it looked fun. I'm not gonna lie; it looked like a really good time. I don't know that Atlanta, and I'm gonna try to steer this the best way I can, but based on some of the bubble and whatever issues the NBA has had in the past, Atlanta is kind of a city where there's a lot of temptations of the adult variety, other things to coax players out of hotels, those things. The bigger risk to me of the All-Star weekend, the guys that are there are they got things to do. You got the contests, you got the game, you have other things going on, and whatever the risk is of guys going out is one thing. The bigger risk on an NBA side of things is the guys that didn't go to the All-Star game, in my opinion. You have a lot of guys that are just getting the week off, and on their choice are going to visit friends and family or going to home, and you're going into the circle of folks that maybe haven't been. So my question is, if you're so up about an All-Star weekend, would it have been better to have a scenario where you have the week and then you have two, like 10 days of practice and bubble time to like regroup and like lock it down? Because I think if you see an outbreak of cases, I think it's far more likely, in my opinion, that it's the group that wasn't at the All-Star game than the group that was, because it's a much larger group, and it's a group that really, even if they're trying to be good, you're relying on a lot of people, because you're not going to go home and sit in your room by yourself. You know, you're going to go home and visit people and like take people out and go have drinks or whatever else it is that you do, because Lord knows if, you know, my governor assures me that COVID is over. So, you know, they're all going out and doing their thing. What's up, DeSantis? Big follower of our podcast. Anyway, but yeah, I thought it was a more fun game to watch than I expected. I had some fun watching it. I was kind of watching the Flyers at the same time for a good chunk of it, but I don't know. It seems like a risk that maybe you shouldn't have taken, but it seems to have gone off without a hitch to this point, and we'll just kind of see what the ramifications are going forward. As for Ben Simmons and Embiid, how do teams not just pay a local barber to be their team barber?
Yeah, that's
like, come play for us. We'll pay you twice what you normally make during this span of your year,
right?
And we're the only people that you cut hair for.
Yeah,
you can even come to the game, sit a few rows up. You'll be one of the only people there.
Because
you're a barber, you're in our bubble.
A lot of like barber shops and things like that. I mean, you have multiple guys, so like. If you're the owner of a shop or you work at a shop, work out a deal, maybe advertise for the shop in the arena too. Like if you're going to pay the guy to be your team barber, like the Hershey Bears, for example.
These teams have the money. When you talk about how much money a barbershop as a whole was going to make over, because it's a shortened season, like you said, so it's not like an 8-month span. You're talking so you take like. All right, give me your taxes from last year. Give me your best 6-month span in the last 3 years. Show us the books. We'll pay you twice that and all your employees twice that to just literally sit in our bubble and cut NBA players' hair. That's it. No one else. Then no barbershop's ever going to turn that down.
No, because I mean, like the Hershey Bears have a team dentist, and they get radio ads and TV ads and stuff like that for the team dentist. So like
an important position for a hockey team.
Absolutely. So do the same thing with a barber in the NBA. So but Dave,
maybe we're just splitting hairs here.
Oh my god. Dave. Stupid. Dave, should the NBA have had their All-Star game?
I don't even know how to follow that up. So let's just talk about something completely different. With the NBA slam dunk contest and things like that, I think one thing would be really interesting and kind of leading into a follow-up conversation But we all know how I feel about basketball, so I won't waste any time on that. But how cool would it be to have a skills competition in golf somehow?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Long drive, like a hole in one.
Long drive would
contest.
get a ton of viewers, I think.
Like, how much fun would that be? Like a putting contest of some sort? Like, I don't even know like what your contest could be, but how much fun would that be?
Well, you basically narrow down like the contest you would have at like a tournament, right? Like you could have a closest to the pin, you could have a longest drive. I don't know, have a hole where you're going for a hole in one. So I don't know what else to say.
I saw somewhere that they put Justin Thomas. I forget who the other guy was, but they had him on a 150-yard hole. And they gave him 50 shots, and neither of them made a hole. It was Justin and Rory, I think it was, but neither of them made a hole in one. But they had 45% of their shots within 6 foot.
But really,
that's pretty much what I average when I go out there to play.
Yeah, maybe
sure. You mean 6 feet of the course or 6 feet of the hole?
6 feet of the green would be great.
Oh, yeah. Usually I'm just within 6 feet of the actual course itself. I have a lot of them that leave the field to play. But they're still within 6 feet, most of them.
Jim would be within 6 foot of where he hit it from.
Yeah, sometimes, if I'm lucky.
Yeah, Jake has seen it. He's seen the play.
But really what you could almost, work in, depending on where a tournament's at, if you have a Top Golf near there, have the guys – kind of do a Top Golf thing and like who could score better and, kind of set up because you can set up a computer system for your skills competition purposes and have fun. Where like right-handed guys hit left-handed or, they have to hit like blindfold. You could find different ways to make it more interesting too. And
Dave, lower opinion. Your opinion for basketball or your opinion for the joke that I led off your segment with there? Like which is ranked higher in your opinion, that joke or the NBA in general?
Absolutely the joke.
All right, so I'll take that. I'll take it.
But I mean,
does that make the NBA a bigger joke than my joke? Does that make the NBA a bigger joke than my joke? It was
back to the golf
contest
here.
Dave, did you find it interesting that the dunk contest, and I know you alluded to the contest being the same day as the All-Star game? Did that feel weird to either of you?
I didn't watch a single thing of it, nor did I read anything about it. I just
do you normally watch it?
No.
Okay, so no change. The ratings stayed the same in Dave's household.
Yeah, zero. It's hard to beat zero.
There's years I try to catch like the 3-point competition or the slam dunk contest. I didn't check them out this year. I usually do not watch the NBA All-Star game, but I don't really watch any.
Put on a show.
I don't watch any All-Star games. They're pointless and they usually suck. So I just don't. I'm not an All-Star game guy myself. But just a quick glance over the NBA standings here. Sixers leading both their division, the Atlantic Division, and the Eastern Conference. The Bucks leading the Central, the Heat leading the Southeast Division, Western Conference, Jazz in the lead, and in the Northwest, Phoenix top of the Pacific, and the Spurs leading the Southwest. Really, is it just are the Sixers and Sean? I guess probably more of a question for you. Are the Sixers and the Jazz just on a collision course with each other? Or is there a team in either conference that you think is going to knock somebody off?
Well, I mean, we're far from deciding anything. I would love it if the Sixers went on their little run and kind of rode this train. Obviously, the Brooklyn Nets are going to do their best to really put a bar in the spokes here for the Sixers, especially with rumors that they're still going to make a couple of moves here and really try to take the East. And they're probably the biggest threat. I mean, Boston's good when they want to be. So I think they could like be like a sneaky team. But right now, I mean, if Philly stays healthy and nobody buys it, I think they're going to be real hard to beat. I would kind of like to see Philly be proactive and try to buy another piece to help off the bench or maybe even contribute as a starter. It'd be nice if, like a guy like Blake Griffin, who's been a name tossed around for the Brooklyn Nets, I could see him I'm not saying he's a perfect fit in Philadelphia, nor do I think he necessarily wants Philly to make the move for him. But at this point, I would think that going to Philly is a better chance at a ring than where you're sitting, which is surprising based on where there. Where'd Griffin sign? See, Jake has it. I didn't follow a lot of news today or yesterday.
Nets.
Did the Nets get him? You think, Jake?
I think the Nets may have gotten it. I think
that was kind of they were the front runner. That's not surprising, especially the way that they're trying to go. But we've seen teams buy a bunch of starters before, and it doesn't always work. That's a pretty good set of four, though. But the Sixers are playing real well as a unit, and to even since Harden's gotten there. Now we didn't catch him with KD in the lineup every time we've played him, but I think the Sixers have matched up well against Brooklyn to this point. But I think they might want to try to make another move to try to lock that down. But the Jazz look like look pretty spot on. It's a shame you get these teams like the Bucks that there's all this hope and there's MVP talk every year, and it's not good enough. Like there's just not enough pieces. There's not enough star caliber NBA players willing to play in Milwaukee. That seems to be the issue. It worked for Toronto one year. Kawhi helped that a lot. But you get those northern cities without as much to do and without as much excitement and flair. And it's hard to sell some of these kids, and they're kids. I mean, these stars are, you get a guy like Zion's, 20? You get these guys, and they get through their contracts, like, where you want to go? Vegas? Is there a team in Vegas? New York. How the Knicks have not managed to build a star team is baffling to me.
Ownership.
How do you not sell the Big Apple as let's play here? Brooklyn's doing it. They're not in Manhattan. They're in Brooklyn.
Different ownership and leadership team there.
Yeah, I guess having a team started, run in your early stages by Jay-Z, that's pretty appealing.
How do you not?
One of my brothers is Jay-Z. You ever met him? I'd like to.
How do you not sell a football team in Dallas? Same type of thing.
Well,
easy there, Panther boy.
It's not oil, Dave. It's football.
Hey, remember at least once.
Have they? Final thing on the agenda tonight, Dave. I think may have some golf plays before we go off the air. But the NHL also at their midseason point. News today, though, from the broadcasting standpoint, we know that this year the NHL and NBC contract runs out, and the NHL had been reportedly looking to split up their TV rights. It would appear that one of those landing spots has occurred. The NHL moving back to ESPN, landing a 7-year contract with the four-letter network that will see 4 Stanley Cup finals being played on the ABC, ESPN networks. And my only question now is, do you bring back Gary Thorne and Barry Melrose, and do you absolutely 100% bring back the greatest theme song in sports broadcasting? Or at least one of the best, the old NHL on ESPN theme.
I was a big NBA on NBC fan.
Oh,
big fan.
True.
I was a big fan of that growing
up. That one up there.
Dun, 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 right? It's dope. Phenomenal.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a tournament of broadcast songs and put it up.
That'd be pretty fun too.
But so it looks like the NHL going back to ESPN, NBC hoping to be in the mix for one of the remaining parts to the contract. But there's some reports that Fox is interested in it, and CBS hasn't rolled it out as well. So we may lose NBC altogether, which, I mean, that would obviously break my heart. But definitely exciting to see NHL going back to ESPN. But let's looking at the standings board going into play tonight, not taking into account results that occurred today. Tampa Bay leading the Central Division with 36 points, sitting above Carolina. Florida, I think, probably one of the surprises there, only 2 points out of first place in that division. Dallas Stars, a team that made a run last year, sitting down there near the bottom. East Division, New York Islanders leading, Capitals in second, Bruins, Penguins rounding out the top four. North Division, of course, the Canadian teams, Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Montreal are your top four there. And in the West, Vegas, St. Louis, Minnesota, Colorado are your top four in the West. Dave, we'll start with you in the NHL. Is there a team, good or bad, that has surprised you the most in the first half of the year?
I think one of the ones that surprised me in a good way is just how good Boston is again. I know you both love talking about Boston, so got to throw that one out there again. But they have been pretty good, all aspects of the game, and trending in the right direction again and still, which is just not that any of us really like to see it, especially with that little rat running around the ice, but they've been trending pretty good. And I also I really like what I see out of this Colorado team. Again, not a surprise or anything along those regards, but do like those two teams so far this year with what I've seen. Some interesting teams and such. The Wild have been strong in some aspects, which is kind of a surprise to some. But they showed some poise last year towards the second half of the year, COVID wise, before that really stuck into place. But just some interesting little tidbits there.
Yeah, Sean, how about you? Is there a team, positive or negative, that has kind of jumped off the page at you this year in the National Hockey League?
Well, I mean, there's a couple here and there that are not like uber surprising. One of them, the Canadian division was as a division, I think, kind of surprising. I expected some teams to really kind of pull away. It just kind of seems to be this kind of muddled mass. And with the exception of like Ottawa, pretty much anybody has a shot. The Flames would kind of be my surprise in that division as far as like, what happened. I really thought the Flames were kind of poised to make a move, and we talked about how the Canucks could be a team to kind of overtake that. And the two of them right now, yeah. Well, I mean, they're on the outside looking in, but both are within 5 points of the fourth spot. I mean, neither
Sure.
are out of it by any means. It's the Canadians that have kind of surprised me there. The biggest surprise for me, because it's not in the East. The East has proven to be the toughest. It's been proven to be the hardest, and it's shaping up right now. The Flyers are on the outside looking in, but the top five are the five that I talked about and the five that you talked about.
Yeah.
It's like the same five. It's just we had them in a different order. I had the Penguins out and the Caps in, but it's Islanders, Caps, Penguins, Bruins, Flyers seem to be the five right now. The big surprise for me, probably of the whole league, and it's not a good one, is the Dallas Stars. I'm pretty sure I had the Stars in my top four, at least for the Central. Man, they are miles. Currently sitting fourth place in that division is the Chicago Blackhawks with 31 points. The Dallas Stars distant seventh with 19 total points. Only team worse than them in that division is the Red Wings by 2 total points. When you're only 2 points ahead of the Red Wings halfway through.
The worst team in the league.
Yeah, it's not great. The Lightning, I would count as a surprise. It's not an uber surprise because I obviously picked them coming out of there. But I knew they were going to be the dominant team in that division. But it's not close. Like, in my opinion, Florida, the other Florida squad, a few hours east.
Panthers are my surprise.
They're a super surprise. They look really good.
34 points. I mean, that would put them tied for the best in the East.
I'm currently showed them tied with Tampa Bay at 36 points based on the current.
That means they got to win today because these were pulled before the games today.
So as good as Tampa has looked,
right?
Florida's right there with them.
And Florida was the last team to lose a game in their first game in regulation. So 36 points, that puts them top of their division in the Central. That going into today puts them at the top of the East, second in the West, or second in the North, and top of the West.
By the way, the top four teams in that division are 36, Hurricanes at 35, Blackhawks at 31.
Yeah, I mean that's
four teams over 30 points.
But you get outside of those, then you're at 25 with Columbus, 22 Nashville, 19
17.
Dallas currently leading the Blackhawks 5-1 after 2, and then Detroit at the bottom. So they're a division that top to bottom is
which,
really,
by the way, Flyers won in a shootout tonight. Just want to throw that out there. That happened.
Caps got the win in overtime. So like that's a division that's really spread out top to bottom. You know, the East kind of spread out a little bit as well. But yeah, the Florida Panthers, my surprise in a good way. My surprise in a bad way. Yeah, probably going to be those Calgary Flames. You know, they were a team that I thought was really going to put things together in the North. You know,
man, the Ducks are bad too.
Yeah, they're real bad. They're real bad. The Sharks below them, unfortunately.
I think the Avalanche are a bit of a shock. I mean, they're in the playoff picture, but the fact that they're
not as dominant.
No, they're looking up at the Wild, the Blues, and the Knights. So that's a bit of a surprise as well. So there's definitely plenty of them.
Yeah, and you know, it's obviously been a strange year. You know, Dallas, you know, speaking to them being near the bottom, I know at the start of the year, had a lot of COVID issues. So maybe that played into their slow start as well. Jake says he's happy for Gritty. I'm happy for Gritty too. You know, they got some fans back in the building, so he gets to see some of his people there.
He feeds off the madness.
He certainly does. He didn't like that he was in an empty building for the first half of the year, but you know, I agree with you, Sean, too. As I think the East Division is probably the toughest and most competitive from top to bottom in the NHL. I you know, you look at the rest of them, I think you're top heavy, and those teams are going to battle within themselves. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a dogfight in the East as expected with the top five and who ends up on the outside looking in. So as we look to the second half of the season, Sean, we'll hit you on this one. Is not gonna switch up officially your predictions from the NHL preseason, but if you had to give a Final Four matchup, so
you're one from each. Final Four.
So one from the Central, one from the East, one from the North, one from the West. Who would you have facing each other? Or maybe not necessarily facing each other, because I think the seeding bounces out.
Right.
But who's your Final Four teams?
Man, it's tough because like I look at some, I think I had the Avalanche out, but right now it would be real hard to pick against Vegas. So I'm gonna put Vegas out. If I was picking now, I think the one that's gonna falter would be like Toronto, where it's like they're running away, but like, are they really? Like, because I mean, the thing is, though, I guess you don't have to play anyone else. You just keep playing, right, until you're in the Final Four. You keep playing just your division, and then all of a sudden you run into someone else.
The first two rounds of the playoffs are on your division as well.
Yeah. I'm not going to take them. I'm going to take Vegas. I'm going to take Edmonton. I'm going to take Philadelphia, who's not even in the top four because I have to. And I'm going to take as fun as it would be to pick Florida, I'm going to take Tampa Bay. I still until somebody proves me wrong. They just score too many goals, and Vasilevsky's probably the best like goalie.
I mean,
right now,
real good.
Like when you have a situation where it's hard to score against a team and they could score 6 goals in a bunch at any time, you basically do what Pittsburgh did the other several years ago, and you win a couple. That's just what happens. Tampa Bay, I guess. Tampa Bay.
Dave, who is your NHL Final Four? Unmute yourself.
I bored him to death.
Yeah, I was falling asleep there, guys. I couldn't get the mute off.
He's dead.
Good thing I'm not on video tonight, eh? So
Who's your final?
We'll go Boston, Florida,
okay,
Colorado.
Cute.
And Canada is tough because I feel like Lord Stanley can't let any of them win a playoff series. So I really don't know that Canada doesn't just like explode or something. But
Well, Canada may have tricked us this year by not making it like a true play. Like you only have to win one series. That's it.
what's going to happen is they're going to get their representative, and then Canada's going to close the borders, and they can't get out of the country.
They can't get out.
But that's what I was saying, like, how's that gonna? Well, I mean, obviously in the first 2 rounds they would still play there, but I would assume after that the Canadian team's going to come south because I would assume
You send the one team.
I feel like by June the border's still going to be closed. They're just going to have to move to a city that's not in the playoffs anymore, and just not.
I don't know that the NHL doesn't go to like a bubble type approach either for the last 4 rounds.
I'm sure
the last 4.
They could. They probably should.
Who you picking in Canada, Dave?
We're gonna go with you took Edmonton. I'll go with Montreal.
I was gonna say I feel like upsets. I took the sleek pick, which is what you were trying to do with the other 3. Took the sleek pick, but Montreal's a cute one too.
Jake likes the Avs.
I also like the Avs, but I'm pretty sure I have them in my preseason picks, so I switched it up now to just hedge my bets.
Smart. I'm gonna stay with Vegas out of the West. They were my Stanley Cup pick from the beginning, so I'm gonna keep with them. Canada, you know what? Toronto doesn't get enough love. Everybody assumes they're gonna choke.
They look good.
So I'm gonna say
Canada. They look great. They just can't play U.S. teams apparently.
Right. So they're gonna be the team that comes out of Canada. As much as I don't like this, Carolina in the Central. For some reason, they get to the playoffs and the last couple of years, they just seem to give people problems. In the East, I'm not confident enough in my Caps to go with them. Certainly not going to say the Bruins. Certainly not going to. Fuck. I'll go the Islanders.
It's going to be someone you hate. Yeah.
I'll go with the Islanders because they're like the least hated
Islanders
at this point because I can't pick Boston. Breaking news: Boston's officially my number 2, like most hated. And I was talking to Matt about this before our wrestling podcast last week. Because look, I hate Philly because they're in the division, but I struggle to find something like super hateable about the Flyers right now. Penguins
There's not a lot to hate. Beyond just the history. That's about it.
Like they're a division rival. I don't like them, but there's nothing hateable about the Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, the Penguins will always be my number 1, but God, fuck Boston. I hate them. They also wear black.
It rolls off the tongue.
It's so easy to say, just fuck Boston. It's that simple. So they are now my number 2 hated franchise.
Very hateable
in the NHL.
They have a great face of the franchise for being hateable.
Absolutely, it's a fucking little rat.
Little rat, Marchand.
Just a stupid little rat. But yeah, so I'll take the Islanders out of the East. So those are my final 4 in the.
If we're on the topics, if you have another topic, pitch it. But if not, I have a quick poll question for the 2 of you based on something I've discovered on social media.
Hit it, yeah, because I think Dave's going to give his players plays maybe in the close up. But go ahead.
Yeah, this is completely out there. It's NASCAR related, so neither of you have an actual investment in this. But by the way, props to Busch Beer for doing this. I stumbled upon it. Busch Beer currently has voting in play to name the series race in Kansas at the Kansas Speedway on May the 2nd. Okay. And it's down to 4 candidates. You have to pick by vote the best name for the NASCAR Cup Series race in Kansas. Choice 1, the Busch Latte 400. Busch Latte 400. We have Nectar of the Cobs, COBS 400. We have For the Farmers 400. And we have Bushy McBush Race 400.
Bushy McBush Race.
You going with Bushy McBush Race?
Bushy McBush Race.
Dave, where are you sitting?
I like that.
I'm just picturing them announcing that race the whole time.
The Bushy McBush Race, which, by the way, is going to run away with this. In case you're wondering,
Nectar of the Cob is the close number 2.
You're going with that. I was a big fan of the Busch Latte. I don't know why, but yeah, Nectar of the Cobs. But Bushy McBush Race. And then it'd be like an over-under bet in Vegas of like how many times in a 400 lap race can you get Bushy McBush race off the tongue? But yeah, they've thrown that in there. We're a big fan of the Bushy McBush race. So as a podcast, we're voting for Bushy oh man, Bodie McBoatface.
But Dave, did you actually give an answer besides just the humor of them trying to pronounce it?
I'll side with you guys on that one, but
We're going Bushy. All right, so I'll vote as a podcast. I'll go on to Bush Beer at the risk of being splattered with Bush-related advertisements. I will go on and I will vote once for our podcast for Bushy McBush race.
There you go.
Okay,
that's good. Yeah, Dave. Before we close up, obviously players this weekend. Any interesting plays to throw out there?
Yeah, so I think Players is obviously the fifth major for the round of the world of golf here. So, you have 48 of the top 50 in the world, I think, are planning to play this week with Koepka and Tiger not present, and the other 48 should be there. So it's a freaking loaded field. Sawgrass is tough from the standpoint that every year it seems like it's something different that causes the winner to win from a stats-driven perspective. Rory, when he won a couple years ago, did it with tee to green and was okay on the greens. When Webb Simpson ran away with an 18, he was far and away the best on the greens. And it's kind of interesting that any kind of style can play there. Another couple things I saw this week when looking into it a little bit, Sergio Garcia has made the cut there 16 consecutive years, which is just insane. So that course obviously fits his eyes a little bit. But the one that I was really blown away with, and I think Justin Ray had this up, but Jason Duffner. So of all guys, Jason Duffner has played 39 times in competition, 40 if you count last year. Has hit 0 balls in the water.
Wow. That's impressive.
So it's one of those and you come out and you come out and you hear Tiger Woods has never hit one in the water. You'd be like, okay, but Duffner, come on.
It's in his name, goddammit.
I know. So not verifying the accuracy of that.
Well, Tiger Woods put a lot in the woods, so throwing that out there.
My goodness. But some interesting things going into this that a lot of the big names are their last tournament that they played. Rahm and Dustin Johnson specifically both have been were over par for the event, and so their form's in a little bit of question. The other thing that's kind of interesting is you have resurgence Jordan Spieth, which I just absolutely love.
That's your favorite, Dave.
I don't even know why I hate him, but I do.
I don't know why.
Jake's a big Jordan Spieth fan. So
good.
Button heads.
Yeah, good.
I love it.
I can tell Jake here loves Bryson DeChambeau, as he says, anyone but Bryson, please.
Yeah, so I think one guy that's going to be interesting this week that's kind of flying under the radar for I like to get some value on some guys is Justin Thomas. He's floating around the close to almost 20-1 range with he's fallen significantly back. He played a couple bad tournaments in a row, largely related to the death of his grandfather, who was at every tournament along with his father. So I think you get a little bit of value on JT. Plus you got one of the best ball strikers, generally speaking. And I saw somewhere that for the last 5 or 6 years of the tournament, he's made the most birdies at Sawgrass over the course of tournament competition, but he's also made the most bogeys. So kind of an interesting balance there. But if he's hot, he's got potential to run with it. For like a mid-tier guy, one guy that I just can't get out of my head this week, and I don't really know why, is Tommy Fleetwood coming out. I think he's like 55-1 roughly. And then for a long shot, again, throw some lunch money on it because if it hits, it'll be great. But for a long shot, I really like how Keegan Bradley struck the ball last week. And greens aren't overly tough to putt on. They're not super easy, but they're not overly tough. So if he gets hot with the putter, he's got potential to run away with it. One of the best flat-out tee to green guys but more clueless than Jim is with a putter. So I think it's a hot putting week somehow. He could definitely run away with things. But those are the three that I'm kind of looking at this week here potentially, but some potential all around, and it should be a really good event. You got a lot of guys that are starting to really heat up, hitting it well, and should be fun to watch as always.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things to do is always just to like on the computer or the iPad or something, just pull up the 17 cam and just watch those guys put balls in the water all damn day, and because it's obviously the great equalizer for there. So we are going to we're going to close it up here, guys. Another good show in the books. Dave, let the people know where they can follow you, and then we're going to get out.
Yeah, we're at Huddle Up Dave, and hope we could see Jordy put some in the drink on 17 this week. I will not have a single cent on him, so splash away.
Sean, how about you? Where can the folks follow you at?
Well, as always, you can follow me at Sean Shine State. It's SHAWN Shine State. And we'll close out here with the Sean Shine Statement, which is a lot of things opening up, of course, here in Florida, but all across the country. We're opening a lot of sporting events up to limited fans. Be excited about it. Go do what you have to do. Watch the teams you want to watch. But for the love of everything, be careful out there. Wear your mask. Travel in small groups. Stay 6 feet apart when possible. Let's not start a super spreader nonsense just to do it. That is your Sean Shine Statement for the week.
All right, very good. You can follow me at Big Jim Sports, but of course, follow the show. We are at Huddle Up Podcast on Facebook and Twitter, at Huddle Up Pod on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all other podcast platforms. Also, check out our merchandise, whatamaneuver.net. Of course, you saw Sean with the shirt. We had the new Property of line as well. So some great designs there. Support the show and get some great merchandise. Whatamaneuver.net is where you can find that. Our home network, NGSC Sports, at ngscsports.com. Like I said, we're going to be moving. We're going to be sticking with the every other week sort of a thing. So we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Hope you enjoy it and stay safe, stay smart, and go for the win. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app. That's arenaeats.app for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?